Yeah.
Colossians 1:15, which is a favorite verse of some Jehovah's Witnesses, about Christ being the firstborn of all creation. How do you respond? Psalm 89:27, Romans 8:9. Well, I will say from my personal response, and I'm going to pull both of those verses up here to read for our audience real quick.
All right.
So Psalm 89. What was that?
Oh, I said, yeah, hey, story time.
Yeah, exactly. So Psalm 89, verse 27, goes into some discussion about Jesus here, and I'll make him the firstborn of the highest kings of the earth. And then in Romans 8:9, and then I'll give how I actually respond with this here in a little bit. Romans 8:9 is you, however, are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. If, in fact, the Spirit of God dwells in you, anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. 8:29, I'm sorry. I read 8:9.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't hear the first one.
Yeah, 29. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers.
And yeah, don't forget Colossians 1:15 also.
Yeah, so Colossians 1:15. Let's go back. And I'll break this down just a little bit. This is a text they use a lot in order to indicate that Jesus is the first creation of God. The Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus is a created being, that he's the Archangel Michael, who has taken on the form of Jesus. What was that?
And they believe he's Satan's brother?
That is the Mormon belief.
Oh, okay.
So the Mormons believe Satan is a brother of Jesus, and I've been deep enough, I can't remember if that's the same belief within the Jehovah's Witnesses. I'll be honest on that. It's been a while on that one, and I cannot remember that. So I'm going to pull this up, and here's the reason I'm going to pull this up for everybody is I want to actually look at the Jehovah's Witness Bible here on Colossians 1:15. So I am going to share my screen here. The good thing with a number of these groups, one of the resources, once you're a firm believer, the good thing about some of these groups is they share a lot of their resources online. So it's very easy to access their resources online, both for the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
So we're going to take a look at the New World Translation. As we mentioned, this is their translation of the Bible. And we're going to take a look at what it says in Colossians for them. So I'm going to read a small section here because I think it's important to see this kind of in context. So starting in verse 15, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, because by means of him all other things were created in the heavens and on the earth, the things visible and invisible, whether they're thrones or lordships or governments or authorities. All other things have been created through him and for him. Notice anything about that, Clinton, that doesn't sound familiar?
Did we lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
It's very subtle.
Is it because by means of him all other things were created?
Very close. That word other. So if we look up this
Oh,
in
all other things have been created through him.
Yeah. So if we look this up in any other translation, it's a very, very subtle difference.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my.
Yeah. So in the ESV, we'll see that actually it says he's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created in heaven and earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authority. All things were created through him and for him. So, not to sidetrack from those scriptures we looked at, I think they would be good ones to discuss with them. But the main response they're going to give is they're going to use their theology to kind of address those situations. They're going to say anytime that it's referring to firstborn, um, it's referring to a created being. It's referring to something that you wouldn't say he was firstborn if he was God in any sense. So they're going to be able to argue very well in terms of responding to those scriptural changes or those scriptural challenges. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. So what I would do if dealing with this scripture with Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's one of my favorites to deal with them on, and I'll show you why.
So real quick.
Yeah.
So the word "other" was the difference, and so because I've got my Bible up here, I use the New American Standard Version, and so it says all things have been created through him and for him, and so they throw in all other things there because of their view that Jesus himself was a created being, so all things couldn't have been created through him, but everything else could have. That's the
Right.
Okay. And so how did because it also says here right at the beginning of the verse, he is the image of the invisible God, and that was preserved
Mm-hmm.
in the New World Translation. So how do they interpret that sentence?
Right. So the image of the invisible God, the example they often give when having this conversation with them is like my son is a image of me. We would say, you're a spitting image of your father, but he is not physically me in any sense, not physically, not spiritually. He's not me, but it's that kind of taking that modern essence of speech and implanting it back on the text to say that this is what it's referring to here. It's like that element of speech in saying that he's the image of God.
Okay, yeah, because the Bible also says that we were made in God's image. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess looking at he is the image of the invisible God isn't necessarily proof that Jesus himself is God, because you can draw a parallel there. So
Right.
yeah.
So how I usually approach this, there's also another tool that is good to have on hand with the Jehovah's Witnesses on their Bible app, on their website. It's there. It's one of the other few things that is a Jehovah's Witness resource. It's very important to know that in dealing with Jehovah's Witnesses, they can't use other resources in any capacity.
So
So they're
they're
not
not
going to be watching this video. They're not going to be looking at these sort of things unless they're going against the instruction of the church.
So they're not like the Mormons where they have various books, like the Mormons have the Book of Mormon, the Doctrines and Covenants, the Pearl of Great Price, Book of Abraham, etc. They just have the New World Translation, and that's all they can use.
Well, they can use any Jehovah's Witness resource. With the Mormons I've spoken to, especially recently, there's some laxity. They should avoid, things that are explicitly anti-Mormon, but they're not condemned from searching the internet for anything related to their religion and that sort of thing. With the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're very strictly cut off from
So
using any resources that aren't from jw.org.
So you're not going to catch any Jehovah's Witnesses on Facebook?
Not very often. There are some on there, but they're going to be very, very careful to avoid anything that speaks about Jehovah's Witnesses from anything other than a strict church perspective.
Yeah. Have you done much study on the original Greek texts?
That's exactly what I'm getting to here. I'll tell you,
Okay.
the greatest thing I've learned from my study with the Jehovah's Witnesses is it's given me a respect for looking at the original languages in more depth.
Yeah,
And
because I know one verse they use is John 1:1, in which they say the word was with God and the word was a God.
mhm,
And I've read John 1:1 in Greek, because I there was a time when I was trying to learn biblical Greek, and I got to the point where I was able to read John 1:1 in its entirety in Greek. I didn't really follow up with it though, so I kind of lost much of what I'd learned. But I still have the book, so I can go back and do it again. So I can understand why they would throw the A in there, but I'm kind of wondering how they could interpret the text here and get instead of all things, all other things. Like I'm wondering how how they could interpret the Greek there when I'm sure all the good translations say all things and not all other things.
you're on the right trail here because that's exactly the issue I bring up. And I use their resources to do it because they're not going to look at any resources I give,
Mhm.
but they have a kingdom interlinear translation from the Greek,
Hmm.
which is an accepted Jehovah's Witness resource because it was one of their resources. And it's an interlinear, which for listeners who may not know what that is, that's a Bible that's going to have the original language laid out along with the English word. So it is exactly word for word. You're not always getting the thought of the passage, but it's going to be word for word to let you see what things are. So in their Greek interlinear, which looks a little like this, kind of crazy to get used to reading.
Yeah, because I do have Greek English interlinear, and it's not laid out like that. It's laid out in two columns: English on one side, Greek on the other.
Yeah, and so theirs is laid just right on top of one another. But the interesting thing about it is in their interlinear translation, um, it says in verse 15, and I'll go specifically to verse 16, all things in the heavens and upon the earth, and the things visible and the things invisible, whether thrones or lordships or government or authorities, the all things through him and unto him it has been created. So, as you'll see, there is no word for other in there in the Greek.
Hmm.
So, in both the Greek and in a direct translation, other is not there. The language would be different and would be using another word included. And I've looked up what the word is specifically that is used there, but um,
Hmm.
this word would have been in there had that been an accurate translation of the text. So when they bring up this verse, I go to verse 16 as well and discuss, well, what's happened here with the translation? Because this is something that's been inserted. And then we have a chance to have a conversation about why has this been inserted? And does this directly change the meaning of the text in terms of who Christ is? Is this something that's been done theologically, or is this something, why otherwise would this word other be inserted here?
Hmm.
So, Colossians is actually my favorite thing to go to with Jehovah's Witnesses because we can go back, we can use their resources to discuss the chapter and go through some of these changes that have taken place. So, certainly bringing up other scripture with Jehovah's Witnesses can be good. It leads to a lot of back and forth. What I do is I just ask questions about this stuff. Well,
Hmm.
what does the Greek say? They'll be the first ones to pull up the kingdom interlinear there. So, well, let's look at it. Most of them haven't looked at it for this particular verse.
Huh.
And then we read through it and say it's not there. Well, what's the Greek word for other? Where's that? Why is that not included here? Using questions can be a really good approach in this sort of situation. So I'm really glad Mikhail brought this one up because
Yeah.
this is one of my favorite examples to go to.
Yeah, and incidentally, that's why reading Tactics is such a good resource, because it
Mm-hmm.
really teaches you how to ask questions in a way that probes but is not aggressive. so it puts the people that you're talking to at ease.
Exactly. And in going over this stuff with people, I would definitely use that approach. It's always better if you can ask a question rather than throw all this stuff in their face and immediately put their guard up. It's better to have that conversation just like you would want to with any friend. You would want to approach things as delicately as possible if you're giving a friend some advice that may be hard to hear. You don't come out and bash them over the head with it unless there's no other way to do so.
Right. We need to have an intervention.
Yeah, exactly.